Hey, so welcome. We are here today talking about generational wealth, talking about buying houses, talking about personal wealth. More than anything is we know that the first step to personal wealth and generational wealth is through home ownership. And home ownership is such this big thing. And in our communities, and we talk about this on a daily basis, in our communities, it's been something that has been this like dangling carrot or this shiny item that just sits out there, and it's something that a lot of us don't get to achieve. And so the theme of this podcast and the theme of the Black Wealth Housing Summit that's coming up is, whose mortgage are you paying? Because typically you are paying somebody's mortgage. And I've kind of started every show with this, saying if you have $2,000 and you're paying $2,000 a month in rent, which is not unheard of in this Denver metro area. In fact, there's people paying $4,000 a month, and there's people paying $1,500. But somewhere at that $2,000 range, you do that for 12 months, and then in 12 months, you've now given that landlord $24,000 of your hard-earned money. $24,000. Now, if you stay in that apartment or that house or that rental, whatever it is, for 10 years, you've now given that landlord $240,000. So if you were 20, you're now 30, entering your 30s, and you've done that for 10 years, you've now given a decade of your life and given somebody else $240,000. We want that to stop. You need to be paying yourself. It should be your mortgage. And so what we're going to do is we're putting a Black Wealth Housing Summit together, and it's going to be on June 19th. We are celebrating Juneteenth, right? So on June 19th, it's going to be at Cross Purpose, which is in the corner of Martin Luther King and Colorado Boulevard. There's an AME church on the corner. Cross Purpose shares the parking lot with the AME church. So if you were in Denver for any amount of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you need to show up from 5:30 to 7:30. And we're going to put you together with a real estate agent. We're going to put a loan officer together with you. We're going to do a credit repair. We're going to be doing a financial planner and an insurance agent. We are going to put a team together for you that you know that maybe you're ready to get a house now. We get you connected with our guest today, and he finds you a house, and we're off to the races. So for some of you, it might take 6 months. After we run your credit and say, hey, there's a little couple tweaks we need to do, then you're going to get the most house possible. It may be a year, it may be 2 years, but we're going to put a plan together. When you walk out of there, not only are we going to give you dinner, we're going to give you a plan, and we're going to give you a plan that will succinctly help you know exactly what you do. Because I think it's lack of knowledge and lack of planning that stops people from being able to do home ownership. And so today, I have Kwasi Amponing. Yes. So he's going to tell you how his name goes. Amponing, yeah. I screwed it up, and I messed it up, and I knew I would. It's his fault because he comes from Ghana.
Yeah.
I lived with Nigerians, and so I figured out how to say Akpom and Ebunike and Ekwe, but yeah. I haven't figured out how to spit all the other really cool names that come out of Africa. So I apologize for butchering your name right now. But what I want you to tell them first, before we even get started, because you are amazing in our community. You are amazing in what you do for families in the community that you have. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today. But I want you to first just tell people how to get a hold of you, what's your phone number, what they need to say, to make sure that they can look at you in the eye and be able to do business with you. And then we'll go into your story. So go ahead and pronounce your name correctly.
So thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, by the way. So it is Kwasi Amponing. I am from Ghana, and you can reach me at Instagram or my phone number at 720-397-9451. Again, that's 720-397-9451. And my Instagram handle is just Kwasi, my first name, KWASI_realtor. So very, very, very basic. And I do love Nigerians, by the way. I just hope you don't try their jollof rice, because it's not the best compared to Ghanaians.
Oh, yes, the fufu and stuff that we ate every day as I was in college. And then they always try to give me some like starfish or something that I was allergic to, and then I break out. But there were some pretty good dishes that we made. Lots of okra. I don't know where the okra came from, so I don't know if that's just if you guys are in Ghana, same with the okra and stuff.
No, saying everything's bigger in Texas, and we say everything's better in Ghana. So
I love it.
We just treat Nigerians as that, that annoying little brother, always trying to get some attention. But
gotcha. Well, what an amazing country. And so now you're here. I talked to Papa D a lot too, with the African Leadership Committee, and he said some really good stuff about you. So it's kind of cool that you're in that circle. But at the same time, tell us a little bit of your story. Why are you even in this real estate business? What is how did you get there? Dreams, aspirations of what you want to do with it.
Yeah. So, of course, it's great that you mentioned Papadilla. I met him pretty recently, but of course, he's doing a fantastic job here in the rural community with his mission, of course, African leadership. And the African dream, or the American dream, especially as an immigrant coming to America, is, of course, get a great job, buy a house, and of course send all that money back to your homeland in Africa, wherever that might be. So my father, of course, he's one of my biggest inspirations. He set off on a journey, like maybe 25, 30 years ago, when he came from Ghana to first Boston, and then he came to Colorado, and he was just working these hard labor jobs. So he was just, scratching together, moving, picking up boxes, and he was, of course, trying to go to school at the same time. And he ended up saving about $15,000-$20,000 of cash that he just put within a duffel bag. And of course, he just didn't know any better. He didn't teach. No one taught him about financial literacy. So he didn't have a bank account. He didn't have a bank account. He didn't have credit cards. He didn't have all those typical day-to-day things that you can qualify to get a house. But he was able to find a real estate agent, and that real estate agent, sort of taught him along the path. And he started showing him about a couple of houses, and he found the perfect house that he wanted to go ahead and purchase so that he can move my mother and me from Ghana to America, and we can all move in towards that one final closing day, big happy celebration. However, oops, can you see me?
Yeah, you're still there. You're good to go.
Yeah, once he found that perfect house, the real estate agent said, "Cool, I'm going to write up the contract. Give me the duffel bag full of cash, and then once we, get all those paperwork sorted, you'll go ahead and get your keys." So my father gave him the duffel bag full of cash, and he never heard from that real estate agent ever again. So that agent basically just stole about $15,000 worth of cash from my father. And to this day, he still hasn't heard from him. So that's sort of why I entered the real estate industry, because I wanted to make sure that things like that never happen again. I wanted to be that beacon of truth and that reliable factor that people in our community can rely on, so that they always know that even if they don't know something, there's still someone out there that's working for their best interest.
Gotcha. Now, did you end up going to high school here, or you came? What's your?
Yeah, I came here since about the 5th grade. So
okay,
yeah.
And you did now from Colorado or from another state, and you came to Colorado later?
So I was in Massachusetts first, and then I came to Colorado. So
okay. Yeah. And how long have you been in Colorado now?
For the past maybe 16 years.
All right, so you know Colorado. What high school did you go to?
I went to Smoky Hill High School.
Smoky Hill. I went to Cherry Creek. So.
Oh no!
Okay, Smoky Hill was only 2 years old when I started at Cherry Creek.
Oh,
they were 2 years after us. So yeah, I'm pretty old. So I've been around. So that's awesome that you know that. And the reason I'm saying that is because you know the community. You know what goes on here. You grew up here. You're part of the fabric of what the Denver metro area is. And as we're talking about people who'd want to come see you and talk with you. I think that's important sometimes. That sometimes there are folks that come in, hey, I'm going to be a real estate agent in the Denver area. They show up in 2021 and they really don't know the culture. Yeah. They don't know the people who are in it. They don't understand, some of the things. So I know you work in the immigrant community a lot. I would say probably the majority of your loans may come in that, but not all of them. Because you work with anybody, you've been here for 16 years. But is there something different or something that we have to look towards, or somebody that's in the immigrant community that might have some fears or some things that they're scared to just go out to someone like myself or your average realtor? What are some of those things that that are special about that community, or are reasons that things that they need to bring to the table, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
maybe a little different.
So I would say two things is, number one, of course, the comfortability of who you're speaking with and just that language of communication, because a lot of the immigrants or people who just aren't from America originally don't necessarily have all the confidence they have because they don't understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. don't have the highest level of reading skills when they're reading these contracts. And sometimes the people who are explaining it to them, they may speak the best English, but the client doesn't understand the English that much either way. So
Mhm.
it's having the ability to have multiple languages under your belt. So I can speak Chi and Khan, and I can help a lot of those people from West Africa specifically to
Okay.
get into those homes and just break down everything that they're going to be needing, and just so they have that reassurance that there's somebody out there that they can always call.
Yeah, it is so presumptuous as Americans that we just think, okay, well, everybody, if, even though they know English and they know that they understand our idioms and they understand like some of those things that we say all the time, the cat's got your tail or something like that, that makes absolutely no sense in any sense of the word unless you've been around for so long that you just either you figured out or you finally ask somebody what that means, and we take that for granted sometimes. And so I'm glad that you're able to get out there and speak, on this, whether it's the same language or at least without the, those different things that we
Yeah.
put into our language, the slang that we put in there that makes sense. I mean, all the guys are saying bet now, and I'm like, I bet. What does that mean? Bet what? I don't have no money. It just means yes or whatever. So I love that you're young and you're in this space and you're doing it. If a client comes to you, what are some things that they need to bring to the table with you that's going to help them find the house, or what should they prepare in their mind? Because what I realize is we can teach all day about some of the things that the physical things, a piece of paper, and I need your driver's license, I need your social security card, or I need your bank statement. That's easy, but there's so many mindset things
Mm-hmm.
that I think people need to come with, or expectations, I guess, that they don't know. So what are some of those mindset things or some of those expectations that you would love for somebody to come, or they need to know about to come into
Yeah.
space with you?
So number one would have to be a crystal clear representation of exactly what they're looking for and what they want. A lot of my clients originally came up to me with these dreams and these wishes and these hopes, but still were a little bit lenient on what they wanted. But once they have that crystal clarity as to exactly what they want, where they want to be, how close they want to be, what things that they might be able to give up, then that's going to be the first step. And I, of course, help them out along that way. And second would just be a realistic approach of what they can afford and what they want. So we just want to balance those needs and wants lists, because sometimes they may want the third car garage, but if they only want to be within a certain price range, then we might have to give that up. Or they might have to be in a different location that they may not necessarily want to be in. So there's a three triangle approach where we have the location, the price, and the house. So we can only have two of those three things on that triangle. So if it's the right house and it's the right location, then they might have to give a little bit on that price. Or if it's the right price and the right house, then it may not be in the right location, and vice versa.
Hey, I like that. I like the little triangle, because when
Exactly.
you said that, I'm thinking about you're saying, okay, what is it that I really want? And
Mm-hmm.
and you're not really talking about I want that house that's right there because that somebody else lives in. You're
Right.
talking about what are these types of amenities that I can't live with? Do I need to have 3 bedrooms? Do I need to have a kitchen that has a gas stove instead of a electric stove? Those are the types of things that you're wanting somebody to find, because what I think I found is so many people, and especially folks that I know that come from other countries, that they've seen one style of housing, and then they come in and they go to another one, so they don't even know what's available. But if they kind of in their mind they've seen enough TV or enough of this to say, hey, I think I really want that, then you can kind of tailor, this is the house that you want, and then you can say, when they say I want 30-foot ceilings, and they they can only afford a $200,000 house, then they're probably not going to get 30-foot ceiling yet.
Right.
And I think that's the key, is folks have to have, when we help them balance their expectations, is knowing that, okay, you might not live in the neighborhood that you've been dreaming of on your first house, but by your second or third house, maybe you are. I have
Exactly.
I've said this on almost all these podcasts. I have a sister who lives out in Southeast Aurora in the Beacon Point area, and it's in $1 million house that she lived in. And people say, well, she's so lucky and she's able to do this, but this is her fourth house. It wasn't her first house. She, if this was her first house, she's not moving over there. But because she bought smart when she did, when she was young, when she was able into a neighborhood that maybe not have been the greatest neighborhood that she wanted, to at the time. But then that house grew in equity, and she's able to sell it and make a whole bunch of money. Then put that down payment on a bigger one.
Exactly.
And put that down payment on a bigger one. So she might have $1 million house that she's living in now, but she doesn't have $1 million loan. Mm-hmm. And that's where the key comes in. Is it's not how much money do you have to put down. So in your world, when you're and you're working with loan officers and you're working with finances, when you're meeting up, or you're joining the lender and the borrower together, what are some of the things that you kind of tell the borrower, this is what you need to make sure you're telling your lender, or this is do you want them to go to the lender first? Kind of give us a scenario what happens in that.
Yeah, and that's an excellent example you just gave of your sister, and that's exactly what I've been trying to focus and sort of curate my brand towards. This saying that I help first-time home buyers become investors through home ownership. So yeah, she was able to get that $1 million house, but that wasn't her first house. That was her fourth house, and that's exactly what I try to bring to the client. So when they're discussing things with the loan officer, I always try and get them towards what they want their monthly payment to be, and to not focus on the overall price point of whatever it is they might be purchasing. So they're like, oh, I'm buying a $600,000 house, but really, if you're just going from a $3,000 rent payment to a $3,500 mortgage payment, you're still going to be within that ballpark, despite whatever the mortgage is going to be. And sometimes they have these fears of the coming recession, and they have these fears of, oh, our housing price is going to drop after I purchase. Well, it's always a long-term game. So if we're going from a $3,500 mortgage payment, just make sure you can make that payment, because you don't plan on selling it for the next 2, 3, or 4 years. This may be a house that you turn into a rental pretty soon, and you can build your portfolio that way organically.
Gotcha. And I wanted to say Shazam on that, because you said payment, not interest rate. Let me say it one more time. You said payment, not interest rate.
Yes.
You said payment, not interest rate. Because somehow in our community, in our world, we get stuck on this thing called an interest rate.
Right.
That is stopping people. You even kind of talked about it as, what if the housing prices go down? Well, if you're living in an apartment, how much are you getting out of what you're paying in the apartment, right? You're paying 100% interest, because none of that's coming back to you, right? So even if the housing prices go down for a little bit and then they come back, if we look historically, historically the interest rates are good. I mean, the amount that you have in the equity in your house and the price of your house is going to continue to go up. Eventually in your house, even if the house prices went down and you lived in the house for 30 years, after 30 years, you're not going to pay on it anymore. At all. In the apartment, if you don't do it, you will be paying forever. And so when we start...
No, forever, those payments are going to go up, because the rents are always going to be rising.
The rents are going to rise because the landlord's going to say he needs more money to do whatever he needs to do. He needs to put a new boiler. He needs to put in a new furnace. You think he's paying for that out of his pocket? No, you're paying for it as the person who's in the house. And so when I think about interest rates, it's like, somebody told me I cannot pay a 7% interest rate. That's what they said, kind of where we're at now. And in our world, that's normal, because if we look historically, that's kind of, it's even lower on some spots. My first house was at 11%. But we look at, we got spoiled, or they got spoiled in hearing at 2% or 3%, and then we go, okay, so right now, and this is my thing, if you got an interest rate and it was 7%, you got a house, and it was at the payment that we know you could afford and you could do, and you start building equity and wealth. If the interest rates go down like you think they're going to in a year, then we refinance, and then you have the lower interest rate. But if the interest rate goes up, now say 7 goes up to 9, now we got to figure out how to qualify you for the home with the same payment that you're probably going to still want, because you say, they told me 2 years ago I could get the house for $2,500. Well, now the interest rate's at 9%, so now you can't get it for $2,500, right? You're paying $2,900 or whatever it is, and so you've lost out on an opportunity not only for home ownership, but you lost an opportunity to even buy a house in the future, unless your job gives you that raise every single year like we want them to, right? So we know that doesn't happen. But I love what you were saying about investment, because new home buyers or investment purchase in the future. Talk about that a little bit. What does that mean? It might necessarily be, I think maybe you're saying maybe not just investing in another house that's bigger, but what kind of investments are you talking about when, somebody gets into a home in that mindset?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that I always love to tell my clients is that number one, I'm a man of my word, and number two, that I'm never going to ask you guys to do something that I'm not doing myself. So one of the biggest things that intrigued me towards real estate and what perpetrated my growth within the industry is that I saw that the potential that there was, especially with these fantastic loan programs like the FHA, we can get into a house with only 3.5% down, despite you may be having some bad credit, like around 580 credit score. We can still purchase a house and get roommates or rent it out within a year to start purchasing another house. And of course, being a realtor, you can have a whole lot of things with that extra commission that you can use towards your down payment. We can also negotiate on top for our clients to get the seller concessions to buy down our interest rate. So we may not even be at a 7% interest rate anymore because a lot of these sellers are desperate enough because the 2020-2021 boom is over. So just trying to buy a house maybe every 1 to 2 years, turning those into rentals, being able to have that equity growth and potentially sell it and buy something else later on, and just have that immense real estate portfolio that we can build and of course pass down to create that generational wealth.
Absolutely. That is so cool. And you're a person who can help people do that where they think of, it's so hard for people to think of their first house sometimes. But then once they get their first house, they're like, wait a minute, that wasn't so bad. Yeah. Now, but what do I need to do? Because we want you to keep your house. It's not we get you into a house, we put you in something you can't afford, and all of a sudden they're foreclosing. No, when we're talking about our community and getting houses and expanding that gap, we want you to create generational wealth. That is what's so important. That's what we're thinking about on a daily basis. And so when we do the summit on June 19th, and I've already told you it's going to be at Cross Purpose from 5:30 to 7:30, we're going to start your mind turning because it's all about what you know in your head and what you believe to be true. And so many people, it seems like our associations, and I think Milford told us about this yesterday, getting around people like Kwasi right here who can, let me say, pinging. Yes. All right. So we get around Kwasi, right? And now our mind changes of what's possible because we've been asking our friends and our relatives and people around us that don't have a home, that have never had a home, and we're asking them what we need to do, and they don't know. They don't know the value of it, and somehow they've influenced us or influence us in our community that, oh man, I'll never be able to get a house. I did a podcast with a grandma the other day, and that's the one that's going to come out tomorrow. And she literally said, I'm now a grandma, and I'm now getting my very first house. If I would have known what I know now, back when I was in my 20s or 30s, I wouldn't have listened to the people. She grew up in the projects here in Denver. She grew up with relatives who didn't have an influence of people around her that said it was possible. Then she put a fake number in her head that said, I can't, until I have this amount of money that's in my, my bank account, I can't get a house. So if you can get over to Kwasi, you can call him. You can come to this summit. Kwasi's going to bring some people to the summit because they need some houses, and we need to make sure that they're there. But we need to make sure that you know the plan and you know that you have the education. And so we want you to keep listening to these podcasts, and we want you to keep listening to what's there because it's so important that you have the information that is not the false information, right? False evidence, fear. False evidence appearing real, right? False evidence appearing real. Because like you were saying, folks can get in the house without, with down payment assistance. You're saying 3% down. We have some programs that we've been talking about that are like $1,500. If you got $1,500 extra dollars, then you have enough income. Now, make sure people know they have to have a job to get into real estate. For somebody coming in. I mean, it's so funny, I get calls from folks and they're like, I want to buy a house. I'm like, okay, well, give me your income statement. And you're like, I live in my mom's basement. But do you work? No. Well, no, you're not going to buy a house unless it's cash. But if you have a job and it's a consistent job and you have will, Kwasi's going to find you a place, in the neighborhood that you want to be in. It might not be what you want to be in ultimately. Kwasi's not selling first-time home buyers a dream home. He's selling them a dream of having a home, but not the dream home that you see on the what's that raffle that you from the I don't even know what the organization is that gives the $1 million raffle every single year. Really? Well, it's one of the hospitals that does it. So, Kwasi, go ahead and give your information again. Give us some last minute thoughts. We're going to have you on again. Especially, I want to know if people are calling you, if people from a result of us just having these conversations and seeing you, realizing you're a real person, that you have the ability. You've done, like you said, you're not going to do anything that you or ask somebody to do anything you haven't done yourself, to work on yourself.
Right.
And so, go ahead and give us that information one more time, and so that we have it. And
Yeah, so you can feel free to text or call me at 720-397-9451. Again, that's 720-397-9451. Or you can just find me on Instagram, where of course I have a lot of client testimonials. You can see some of the houses I've been selling out here in Colorado at Kwasi_realtor. And some words of wisdom too. Again, so I told you that sob story in the beginning with my father, but one of the things that I said, I'm not going to ask any of my clients to do something I'm not already doing, of course, and having this investment in real estate is around 2021, around this time last year, I was able to go ahead and help my father and mother get a house in Green Valley Ranch. It's a beautiful community that they always wanted to be in. They're close to a whole lot of their friends and relatives, and they were able to find a great church that's just 5 minutes away, and they're as happy as can be. So hopefully in the next few years, we can go ahead and get that house out of there, and they can start building their house in Ghana and, have a nice retirement. So it's a
amen. That's so cool. So Kwasi, what I want to happen is, I want people to call you, obviously, but the next time you come on, let's bring some of those clients on that you've been able to help and can kind of tell their stories of this is where I was at. I work with Kwasi. This is the home that he helped me find. This is what I'm doing with investment. Whatever it is, maybe find 2 or 3 people, because the more people can see that this can be done, the more people can realize that this isn't a dream that's out there that cannot be realized, the more we're going to make an impact in our communities. And I want to thank you right now for making an impact in our community. You are doing some phenomenal stuff for our folks that maybe some other folks aren't willing to do. And here's the best part: is you can get paid at it at the same time. Yeah. You don't have to. This doesn't have to all be a giveaway. It can be a career. And I'd love people to call you about a career as well, and be able to talk to you about, hey, these are some things that I've done. So thank you for being a mentor. Thank you for making a difference, and thank you for making an impact. We loved the fact that you came on today.
Oh, thank you very much, Brian. It's a pleasure.
All right. You guys have a wonderful day. Well, thank you for tuning into our podcast today. It has been a fantastic opportunity for us to show you exactly what we're trying to do in the community, and that is to help people to make sure that they have the ability to realize home ownership. And so my name is Brian Arnold. I am a lender. I'm with City First Financial. And so if you have questions, I'm not doing this podcast so that we can, rush all the business over to City First Financial. I'm doing this podcast so that we can make sure that you are taken care of, that you have a real estate agent, that you have a loan officer, that you have a credit repair person, that you have an insurance person, that you have a financial advisor, all working with you towards making your home ownership realization happen. We're also going to be talking about, wealth generation and what it means to pass on to the next generation. I do trusts and wills and making sure that the money that you've accumulated during your lifetime actually passes on to the next generation without going through a thing called probate. And so we want to make sure that we have some unique different things that we may have talked about on this thing that can help you think about what that's going to look like. So thank you again for communicating. Go ahead and subscribe to these YouTube channels, whether it's on YouTube that you're watching the video, or if you are just listening to this on a podcast, that you are subscribing to the podcast, because we are going to have some amazing guests that are coming on and some amazing content. So thank you for the blackwealthexperience.org and getting on that and just coming in and listening to us, and then taking advantage of the resources that we're hopefully and education that we're hopefully giving to you. So you have a wonderful, awesome, incredible, awestruck day. You are God's greatest gift, and I want to make sure that you know that. Talk with you guys soon.